Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Lauren Conlin, and welcome to Pop Crime TV's The Outlier podcast. I have a little bit of a cold, so bear with me today, but I wanted to take the time to dive into three pretty big stories that are not Karen Reed and they're not Harvey Weinstein. I know that's taken up a lot of my coverage these days, but the stories today involved Kim Kardashian and a little bit of an update on Diddy before his trial begins May 5th. And we're going to reflect on the tragic loss of Virginia Giuffre, the Epstein survivor whose fight for accountability has inspired millions, but whose life really seemed to end in heartbreak and confusion. And when it comes to Kim Kardashian, we are going to talk about the fact that she is set to testify in person at trial over her 2016 Paris robbery, and one of the key suspects just died before going to trial. So yeah, a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. Let's get started. It's been a minute since I've provided an update on Sean Diddy Combs, the disgraced hip-hop mogul who faces a very high-profile federal trial scheduled to begin on May 5th, 2025, here in New York City, where I live. Following his arrest on September 16th, 2024, he has been housed at MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center, ever since, and he's been charged with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution, stemming from allegations spanning from 2008 to the present. And the case is being prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, and they accuse Sean Combs of leading a criminal enterprise that facilitated the abuse and trafficking of women through violence, intimidation, and coercion. And if you've been paying attention to the civil suits, which are separate, you'll know that it wasn't just women, allegedly. It was men as well. I want to get into some of the more recent rulings and things that have been going on in court that I haven't discussed, but during a hearing on April 25th, 2025 in Manhattan Federal Court, prosecutors disclosed that Sean Combs had rejected a plea offer, though specifics of this offer were not revealed. So the rejection really set the stage for what I think is going to be a really contentious trial. Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilo, laid out part of the defense strategy and argued that the, quote, swinger lifestyle that Combs allegedly engaged in was very common, and this isn't a crime. It wasn't criminal. Agnifilo emphasized that the defense would focus on establishing that the alleged sexual activities, including the freak-offs, were all consensual, and that would be challenging the prosecution's claims of coercion and trafficking. And a related ruling addressed the scope of evidence admissible at trial. And I think this is pretty big. So prosecutor Maureen Comey urged Judge Subramanian to bar Combs from presenting evidence about unrelated prominent individuals who had hired escorts, arguing that it was irrelevant to the case. So it sounds like Diddy was trying to bring up some big A-list names that he could say, oh, hey, they hired escorts too, so why aren't they getting in trouble? I mean, if you ask me, we're talking about apples and oranges here. So yeah, I agree with the prosecutors. It most likely is irrelevant to the case. But Agnifilo countered that while the defense would not really pursue that line, they were entitled to show that the alleged behavior is a part of this broader, quote, lifestyle that Diddy engages in, and it's not a criminal enterprise. But Subramanian ruled in favor of the prosecution, limiting the defense's ability to introduce this type of evidence, but allowed them to argue the consensual nature of Combs' relationship within the context of the case. Sorry, I can hear myself sniffling, and some of these words I'm trying to say, they just come out so terribly when one has a cold. But additionally, going back to January 14th, 2025, Combs' team had demanded that the prosecutors produce 9 videos mentioned in the indictment, which allegedly depicted the, quote, freak-off parties. The defense claimed these videos would show, quote, adults having consensual sex, plain and simple, end quote, with no evidence of violence or coercion, accusing the government of attempting to police non-conforming sexual activity. Prosecutors complied by late 2024, as confirmed during a December 2024 hearing, where they stated that all evidence would be disclosed by year's end. But in April of 2025, this past month, the defense continued to argue that the late disclosure of some materials hindered their preparation. So it seems like the state hasn't, or the prosecution, I should say, hasn't turned everything over. There also was a ruling on the, quote, hallway attack video, the very infamous and disturbing Cassie video. And this is a significant piece of evidence. The 2016 surveillance video leaked by CNN in 2024 that shows Sean Combs absolutely assaulting in a horrific manner his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in this hotel hallway. And this video corroborated allegations that Ventura made in her 2023 lawsuit against Combs, which was settled for an undisclosed amount a day after she filed. And during this hearing, his team sought to have the video dismissed as evidence, arguing that it had been altered, claiming the footage was sped up. They depicted this out of sequence. The timestamps were obscured. And they also alleged that the Department of Homeland Security leaked the video. And the prosecutors have denied this, saying, no, we only got it after CNN made it public. But on April 7th, 2025, Judge Submaranian, and I feel like I am mispronouncing this, but I'm doing my best, he addressed the issue, encouraging both sides to reach this compromise. So he suggested that if the footage was indeed out of sequence or sped up, it could be restored or slowed down to reflect the original recording. But CNN denied making any edits, and prosecutors agreed to work with the defense to ensure the video's integrity. The judge ultimately ruled that the video could be admitted as evidence, provided the authenticity was verified. And this decision, I think, really has bolstered the prosecution's case with this key piece of evidence showing his history of abusive behavior. And you don't even need the word allegedly, because we saw it with our own eyes. I also want to go back and say that Combs, when he was first arrested, he did try to make bail multiple times, and he was denied multiple times. And multiple judges have cited that his wealth and influence were very risky for tampering with witnesses or fleeing. And I tend to agree. His team has always argued that the bail denial was distorted by the case's high profile. I don't think that's true. I mean, yes, the case is high profile, but no, I mean, everything that the prosecution has alleged is true. He has so much money. He was actually talking to witnesses from behind bars. So yeah, that's a problem. There also were amendments to the indictment. The prosecution has amended the indictment 3 times before April of 2025, with the most recent changes adding 2 charges of sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution related to a woman identified as victim 2. These amendments were reported on April 7th, 2025, and expanded the scope of the allegations, accusing also that Combs forced employees to work long hours and threatened those that didn't assist in his alleged trafficking scheme. The defense responded by filing a motion to dismiss the transportation charge, arguing that it unfairly targeted Combs due to his race. The judge really was quick to reject that ruling in March of 2025. And I think that's so crazy to bring race into it, but they did. And as the trial approaches, all of these rulings have really set the stage for, again, what I believe is going to be a crazy and contentious legal battle. The admissibility of the hallway attack, like I said, really strengthens the prosecution's case. And oh my goodness, the withdrawal of one of his attorneys in January, Anthony Rico. I mean, that was crazy as well. That actually came out of nowhere, and his attorney Anthony Rico didn't really say much. He hasn't spoken out since. He just said he couldn't be a part of this, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but Agnifilo and the defense, they really seem to be focusing on the fact that Diddy had consent by all of these men and these women to counter the trafficking charges directly. Again, the trial is set to take place in New York at federal court on May 5th. It will not be live streamed. I'm going to try to attend 1 or 2 days. Let's see. It's going to be crazy. So I doubt I will get in, but if anything, I will definitely go down to the courthouse and get footage outside for sure. I want to move on now to Kim Kardashian's Paris robbery and the death of one of the suspects before the trial. So let's go back to October 2016 in Paris. It was the night of October 2nd, and Kim Kardashian West at the time, she was robbed at gunpoint at a luxury hotel/apartment where she was staying during Paris Fashion Week. And she was in the French capital with her family, including her mom, Kris Jenner, and her sister, Kendall Jenner, and even Kanye West was there as well. They were there to attend Fashion Week events. And the residence where she was staying, it's known for its privacy and secret entrances. And it costs up to 15 euros per night. And they had actually previously hosted Kim Kardashian in 2014 before her wedding to Kanye West. And this is called the Hotel des Portales. I'm probably saying that incorrectly. I have a horrible French accent, so excuse me. But this robbery occurred around 2:30 a.m., and 5 men dressed as police officers wearing ski masks entered the building after forcing the concierge who was on duty to lead them up to Kardashian's apartment. 2 of the men were armed with handguns, and they actually tied the concierge's hands and feet with duct tape and locked him in a room before going up to the Kardashian suite, where she was alone. Her bodyguard at the time was out with her sisters, Courtney and Kendall, at a nightclub, and thank goodness her children, North and Saint, who were also in Paris at the time, were not present. In an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians in 2017, Kim Kardashian opened up about this experience. And I think that just because she is who she is, and a lot of people might roll their eyes at her because she's this privileged reality star, whatever you might think about her. I mean, this is a really disturbing experience that she went through, and I really can't imagine. But she described hearing footsteps and calling out, thinking it might be her sisters or maybe her assistant. So when there was no response, her heart started to get really tense, she described. And then 2 men entered her bedroom, one pointing a gun at her while the other restrained her. They demanded money, and she said, "I don't have any money." And then the robbers then dragged her to the hallway near the stairs, where she then saw the gun clear as day and feared for her life. She said she considered running, but she was worried she'd be shot. And she said, "I have a split second in my mind to make a decision." So the robbers then tied her hands with zip ties, taped her mouth shut, and placed her in the bathtub, threatening her life if she didn't comply. They demanded her jewelry, stealing items valued at approximately $10 million, including a $4 million engagement ring given to her by Kanye West, a piece by Lorraine Schwartz with a 20-carat diamond, oh my goodness, and then other various items. A jewelry box that was worth $6 million, a gold Rolex, diamond necklaces, her purse, and the robbers, they spoke French, and one translated demands into English for Kim. And the whole ordeal was actually only 6 minutes long. I'm sure it felt like forever to Kim, but they fled the scene on bicycles, leaving Kim Kardashian very shaken but physically unharmed. Her assistant called the police when she found her, I guess, and she was freed shortly after. And she left Paris hours later, returning to New York on a private jet. And Kanye West was actually performing at the Meadows Music and Arts Festival in Queens at the time. And he abruptly ended his set, telling his fans, "I'm sorry, family emergency, I have to stop the show." And this incident was actually dubbed the biggest robbery of an individual in France in over 20 years. It made global headlines, and it raised a lot of concerns about Paris and Paris's security, especially after the 2015 terror attacks that killed 130 people. I don't know if you guys remember that at a theater, at a concert, and it was awful. But yeah, this robbery deeply affected Kim Kardashian. She took a 3-month break from social media. She paused filming her reality show for a few weeks, and she described the ordeal as life-changing. And she later testified via video in a French court in 2020, detailing the trauma, including fears of being raped or killed. And God, I cannot imagine. And this incident also really strained Paris's luxury tourism image, and the 2024 Olympics. So that's something as well. But the French police, they did launch a manhunt to get these men who did this to her, or allegedly did this to her. And this group was actually nicknamed the, quote, grandpa robbers due to their ages, because believe it or not, most of these men were in their 60s and 70s. And they were career criminals with prior convictions. So some of these key suspects that they were able to capture, their names were Omar Kardashian, who is 69, also known as Old Omar. He admitted to participating in the heist, but denied being a ringleader. There's someone named Eunice Abbas, who is 72, confessed his role, and later published a book in 2021 titled "I Kidnapped Kim Kardashian." And a French court actually ruled that he could not profit financially from this book. God, what a freaking idiot. And then there's Marceau Baumgartner, also 72, nicknamed Rough Nose, who I guess was kind of notorious in the Paris underworld with a history of handling stolen goods, and was a known guy for committing forgery, robbery, and he was suspected of finding buyers for Kim's stolen jewelry, including the $4 million engagement ring, which actually has never been recovered. So this gang, the grandpa robbers, they were a very well-known and well-organized group. And let me just be clear, I don't think I said this before, but authorities arrested 17 suspects that were allegedly involved in this, and 12 of them were eventually charged. Now, the trial for 10 of the suspects was scheduled to begin April 28th, 2025, which is today, nearly 9 years after the robbery, due to France's ridiculously complex legal system, and the case is international. But let me explain to you why only 10 of the suspects were going to trial. Well, one of the suspects, Pierre Bonanari, who is 72, he was considered the, quote, brains of the operation, but he's excluded due to having Alzheimer's. So his case is going to be tried separately. Like, yeah, these grandpa robbers are very old. And then, more significantly, Marceau Baumgartner died unexpectedly on March 6th, 2025. So, and reportedly, this guy, Baumgartner, was very excited about clearing his name in court, even though it seems like he did it. But authorities, they did note that Baumgartner had received death threats from gangland sources, likely due to fears he might reveal more accomplices or details about jewelry buyers. So, I don't know how he died. It doesn't say the cause of death, but this is really interesting. If somebody wanted him dead because he was going to speak out about this other operation, which, God, I mean, think of how big that could be. These jewelry buyers and people in that camp, that could be hundreds of people. So yes, his death means that there are 10 defendants in this trial, and some have confessed and others have denied involvement. So this is really interesting. The trial in Paris, as far as I know, it is set to begin today, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I haven't really paid attention to this just because it's been so long, but I did see the headline that one of the suspects passed away, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is very sketchy. And yeah, it does seem like it's just a bit sketchy, but hopefully I will have more information on how that trial goes in the next few weeks. So my heart goes out to Kim Kardashian. I know that this is probably not easy for her to relive all of this, and yeah. Okay, let's move on to the sudden death of Epstein survivor Virginia Giuffre. Let's go back to the beginning. Who was Virginia Giuffre? She was born Virginia Roberts in 1983 in Sacramento, California, and she grew up in a working class family, but unfortunately, her life was plagued by instability, and she was SA'd by a family member at age 11, and she ran away from home. So she was living on the streets before being placed in foster care. And at 14, she moved to Palm Beach, Florida with her father, hoping for a fresh start. So it was there in the year 2000 where her life took a really devastating turn. She was working as a spa attendant at the Mar-a-Lago resort, and she was 17 years old, and that's where she met Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite who approached her while she was reading a book on massage therapy. And Maxwell was the girlfriend and associate of Jeffrey Epstein. And Maxwell promised to help Giuffre achieve her dream of becoming a massage therapist if she worked for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, what followed this was years of awful abuse. Giuffre alleged that Maxwell groomed her, luring her into Epstein's orbit with promises of opportunity, only to be SA'd by Epstein and then trafficked to his very powerful friends. Among her allegations was a claim, a very famous one, that she was trafficked to Britain's Prince Andrew at age 17, an accusation that he has consistently denied. However, we all believe that to be 100% true, and we've even seen a nice photo of them together. Not that a photo really proves anything, but a lot of other testimony does. And Giuffre described Epstein and Maxwell's operation as a web of charm, wealth, and intimidation. And Epstein actually boasted multiple times of, quote, owning local police. And Ghislaine Maxwell used her woman abilities, I guess, to gain the trust of all of these vulnerable girls. And Maxwell said this to The Cut in 2021. She said, quote, "She's worse to me, more evil than Epstein," end quote. And she said this because Maxwell was allegedly the devil's right-hand man in exploiting these young girls and really pouncing on their vulnerabilities. So Giuffre, she escaped Epstein's control in 2002 when she met an Australian man, Robert Giuffre, whom she married just 10 days later. She moved to Australia to start a family, raising 3 children. However, her past followed her because in 2007, the FBI contacted her as part of their investigation into Epstein, pulling her back into a fight for justice that really would define her life, unfortunately. And over the next decade, Giuffre became one of Epstein's most prominent accusers/survivors, filing lawsuits against Epstein, Maxwell, Prince Andrew, and many others, and publicly sharing her story to advocate for survivors. So Giuffre had a huge role in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. obviously Epstein's longtime associate, who was arrested in July of 2020 on charges of sex trafficking and abuse nearly a year after Epstein's death by, quote, suicide, which wasn't a suicide, in a New York jail in 2019 while he was awaiting trial. So Maxwell's trial in December of 2021 became a focal point for Epstein's survivors and victims, many of who, like Virginia Giuffre, had been denied the chance to confront him in court after his death. So Giuffre, she did not testify in Maxwell's trial, but her allegations and advocacy played a pivotal role in the broader case against Maxwell. So Giuffre had accused Maxwell of recruiting her and overseeing Epstein's trafficking network, and this was a claim central to her 2015 lawsuit against Maxwell for defamation after Maxwell called her a liar. And that lawsuit was settled in 2017, and again, it helped lay the groundwork for Maxwell's criminal prosecution. So during Maxwell's trial, prosecutors presented evidence of her role in grooming and abusing girls, charges that echoed Virginia Giuffre's allegations, and 4 other women testified, actually, detailing how Maxwell lured them into Epstein's orbit with promises of mentorship, only to facilitate this abuse. So when Maxwell was convicted in December of 2021 on sex trafficking and other related charges, and as many of you know, she faces up to 65 years in prison, or she did at the time, and then she was later sentenced to 20 years. Giuffre was in Australia, and apparently she was with her husband, and they were shouting, she's guilty, and she had told The Cut that it was this bittersweet moment that she had dreamed about for a decade, but the fight had taken a toll. And Virginia said to The Cut, quote, "I've been coping as well as I possibly can being on the other side of the world." And she admitted to sleepless nights, obsessive Googling of trial updates, and apparently her middle son hugged her saying, "Mom, you did it," which was a moment of pride amid her pain that she described to The Cut. And she saw Maxwell's conviction as a step towards justice, not just for herself, but for all survivors, noting that it showed that no matter how rich or connected you are, you can still be held accountable. And Maxwell's conviction also bolstered Giuffre's civil case against Prince Andrew, which she settled in 2022 for an undisclosed amount of money that was reported to be in the millions. And it's just, it's awful because despite these, I guess, quote, victories, I mean, Virginia Giuffre's life was just marred by the trauma of her abuse and her relentless fight for justice over the last 2 decades. And she has openly spoke about the toll that it took on her, how she had to go and up her therapy sessions during Maxwell's trial. She didn't sleep. She was always grappling with the emotional weight of the past, but she really did try to build this stable life with her husband, Robert, and their 3 children. However, recent reports suggested that the couple had separated after 22 years of marriage, which added to her personal struggles. And it was a bit concerning. In April of it was March of 2024, Virginia Giuffre took to her Instagram, and she did not look great. She was bruised, and it said, I will read it, quote, "This year has been the worst start to a new year, but I won't bore anyone with the details, but I think it's important to note that when a school bus driver comes at you, driving 112 miles per hour as we were slowing for a turn, that no matter what your car is made of, it might as well be a tin can. I've gone into kidney renal failure. They've given me 4 days to live, transferring me to a specialist hospital in urology. I'm ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time. But you know what they say about wishes. Shit in one hand and wish in the other, and I guarantee it's still going to be shit at the end of the day. Thank you all for being the wonderful people of the world and for being a great part of my life. God bless you all. XX Virginia. End quote. Now, this statement was both very shocking and very odd as well. And the Western Australian police would later say that this crash was described as, quote, minor with no reported injuries. And they released a detailed statement on what happened, which was much different than Virginia's statement. And I had some statement deception analysts just review this, not to call her out or drag her in any way at all, but they did find some issues with this statement in the sense that, she said she has 4 days to live. It's buried in the middle of the paragraph, and that would seemingly be the first thing you want to put out there, but also that it was just riddled with depression. She won't bore anyone with the details of her life, and it's so incredibly sad. So when reports surfaced that she had took her own life, I was not necessarily surprised. I was very sad for her and for her family, but no, not surprised at all. Western Australian police received a report late that Friday night finding Giuffre unresponsive. First aid was attempted but failed, and authorities ruled out foul play, confirming the death as suicide. And the Major Crime Division investigated, but early indications pointed to no suspicious circumstances. And I know that everybody is pulling up the 2019 tweet that she made, which says, quote, "I am publicly making it known that in no way, shape, or form am I suicidal. I have made this known to my therapist. If something happens to me, in the sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted." End quote. And I was surprised that a lot of people were sharing this, like Nancy Mace and Maria Bartiromo. And yeah, I mean, look, it's something, but this was 2019. A lot can change in 6 years, and many of you guys know me. I love a good tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but I don't see her being silenced now. After all these years, I really don't, especially given her last post. It really did seem to just scream for attention. And again, not in a way that I'm trying to drag her at all, but man, this woman has been through it. I mean, come on. There's only so much that one can take at this point. And my heart goes out to her family and her children. And I just, I really hope that her legacy lives on as one of courage and sacrifice, because she was among the first to call for Epstein's prosecution. And she really was or is the face of all of this. So I want to just reflect on her words from 2021, just to hopefully end this on a powerful note. But she says, quote, she said, "Now I can really start working past Maxwell and thinking about others who need to be held accountable." And though she didn't live to see that chapter, her fight does continue through the survivors that she helped inspire and the systemic changes that she helped spark. And going back to the fact that I really don't believe that she was unalived, I mean, come on, why are they going to unalive her but not Ghislaine? In my opinion, I have said this from the start, Ghislaine holds the key to all of these names, but I guess she's not a snitch. And look, Virginia Giuffre, I mean, she did know many of these names, and we've seen a lot of these alleged names on a bunch of different filings. Many of the names were actually on Ghislaine's unsealed court transcripts, but you know what? I really don't think we're ever going to see the extent of this quote-unquote full list. I don't. If you think otherwise, let me know why. But anyway, guys, I wanted just to give a comprehensive overview of what's going on with Diddy, Kim K, and the Paris robbery, and then, of course, Virginia Giuffre. Hopefully you learned a little bit today, and I thank you all for listening. If you like this podcast, don't forget to rate and subscribe on Apple, or like and subscribe to me on YouTube, Pop Crime TV. I will be back with another episode this week, more live streams, and all of that jazz. I'm Lauren Conlin. Thanks for listening.